Hey, welcome to The Fix. I'm Tucker.
I'm Travis.
And today we're out here with Tanya and Adam, and we're gonna talk about gardening. You know, in the state of where things are with groceries being so expensive, this is something that's becoming more and more popular. I think people are more and more interested in it, and as we've talked about this, you guys are doing this on a bigger scale than probably most people are, but you have been doing some really neat things, and we want to talk about those things and hopefully educate people on how this is really doable no matter what size yard you have. And you guys have a great place just outside of Great Falls, but you've learned some things, you've innovated a little bit, and we want to just understand a little bit better and help people know, hey, you can save a ton of money by growing your own groceries.
Coming around your guys' property, we've looked at hydroponics, regular in-ground gardens. What other kind of concepts do you guys work with right now, and how did you end up on those kind of things to innovate and make do with what you guys have available to you?
I think we've gotten to where we are right now through like a decade of consistent failures, and working our way and learning from our failures and kind of improving every single year.
Some trial and error then.
A lot of trial and error. For the hydroponic thing, we just started that this year. We went down their YouTube rabbit hole for months after our greenhouse tomato system we had last year. We got a bunch of weird stuff. We got blight, we got root rot, a bunch of stuff we didn't expect.
Things that just didn't allow fruit or any flowering to happen.
So we had lots and lots of leaves, lots of plants, but no fruit. And so we're trying to figure out why that happened. Right. We think we packed it too full of plants. The plants got huge, but they didn't actually end up fruiting at all. So we looked at some different systems on how to minimize how many plants we have, but maximize our yield. Yeah, and then we kind of fell into the hydroponic thing, again, going down the YouTube rabbit hole. Yeah. And so we looked at every single system you could possibly put together. We ended up settling on the Dutch system, which so far, 3 weeks into it, is working. We'll see how it goes by the end of the year, but so far it looks like it'd be working fairly well. But yeah, we wanted to minimize how many plants we had, maximize our output, and that was a system that seemed to do it the best.
What is it about the Dutch that stood out for you guys with your specific, necessities and needs?
So you have one big container that holds the vast amount of the water, and that water is consistently being run through a pipe into each individual bucket that has each individual plant in it. And then the overflow is flowing back into that reservoir.
So one water source, you only really feed one
exactly
area,
so,
check the pH of one area,
yep.
All that stuff.
Check the pH just in the reservoir, add nutrients just in the reservoir, and it'll equally distribute it throughout all the plants.
And then what kind of plants are you guys primarily growing with the hydroponic system?
Right now we're just doing tomatoes and beans.
Cool.
And we're trying out the first year. We're going to see how it goes. If it goes gangbusters, like we're keeping our fingers crossed it does, we'll try it again, maybe scale up a little bit, and do something a little bit different with peppers and things like that. But right now we're just doing tomatoes and beans.
Awesome.
For those who might not understand, one of the things we want to show people today is that, one, you can do this. Yeah. Anybody can do this. And two, you can get like 90% of the stuff that we're going to show you today at North 40. So for those who don't understand, maybe, and have never heard about this, or maybe you've heard the word, what is hydroponics?
You're gardening without the dirt. So dirt is, I guess the term, and I may be incorrect, but the term is substrate. And it's carrying all your minerals and all that value that adds nutrients to your plants. So you want good dirt, you want good soil. So we're really loamy here, which is sandy. Okay. Some stuff grows well in that sandy soil, but most things really need nutrients.
So you need to add stuff to the soil.
We add stuff to the soil. We have to do a lot of addition. We compost a lot, so we've got manure from the goats, from the chickens. We do lots of other composting and straw and things that's breaking down. You're adding nutrients to the soil, but with hydroponics, you're taking the soil out of the equation. Okay. And so you have almost I would argue maybe a better way to pinpoint your nutrients. Okay. And it's all in water instead. So you're rather than checking all the nutrients in your soil and stuff, you're just checking the pH balance of your water. And hydroponics is all running on water. Okay. And in our case, you're running it through buckets, and you're using a substrate. You can use, I think it's vermiculite, or we're using clay pebbles. Okay. And that's what goes inside a little bucket. You stick your plant down in there, your roots have something to hang on to, and then those roots grow down into the water, and that's where they're pulling all the nutrients. And as long as you have all the minerals and the pH balanced in your water, you're getting, your plant's getting everything they need, but they're not fighting the, part of what we fought last year was with the greenhouse, you're not getting the evaporation. We overwatered, things don't evaporate the same way, and so we ended up actually getting like a lot of root rot, things like that that you're not expecting, and then about the time you realize what you've done and you're trying to correct it, your growing season's over. And
what we want to do today is try to save people that decade of learning and just tell them what you've learned. And so like taking all these kind of steps that where you basically have said, like, we tried to grow stuff, we didn't get fruit, we didn't get enough tomatoes or whatever we were trying to grow. And so this is the system that you've come up with.
Why don't we go check it out and see it in person and
Yeah, unpack it for us. Show us what you did.
That's perfect.
Okay, so this is your greenhouse.
Yep.
Not huge.
Not huge at all.
So you got to manage your space really well.
Exactly.
All right, so you have 6 buckets here. You got 5 tomato plants and you have a bean plant.
Correct.
Explain to me the system because it looks pretty simple.
Yep.
And then we'll show some specifics. But explain to me what we're doing, what's happening here.
Okay, so like we said, this is considered a Dutch system, so
Okay.
it's fed off of a reservoir of water.
So that's just that bin there is just got water in it.
Yep, and right now it is just, I dug a hole, put some road mix in the bottom, made it level, and just shoved it in there for now.
Okay.
It doesn't look very pretty, but it's working currently.
Okay. And then there, you got a little pump in there.
Correct. I just have a cheap $20 fish tank pump
Okay.
that I shoved in there, and I hooked that up to 1/4-inch irrigation line.
Okay.
And that 1/4-inch irrigation line runs up into 6 individual
Tees.
Yep.
Yep.
Tees where they have the individual
These little
drip
spray
lines.
heads. Yep. All right, so this is the end of your drip line. It's just got it coming out.
Yep.
Like, and I'm guessing this is adjustable a little bit.
Correct. Yep.
Yep. How'd you get to this?
I wanted to do it as financially efficiently as possible.
Right.
So I start from the beginning. Buckets are easy. Everywhere has buckets, right?
Right.
Went and got a bunch of buckets.
Lovely North 40 buckets.
Exactly.
Perfectly centered in the North 40 logo, I might add. Which is
Exactly.
great. Good job.
And so I want everything to fit together. I want it to look as nice as possible, but I wanted to be efficient. So I thought, okay, how am I going to structure the drip line
Yep.
so that it's secure, it's not hanging over, it's not falling off all the time.
Yep.
The cheapest medium which I could find, PVC.
Yep.
It's the easiest thing in the world. It's
Easy
cheap.
to cut, easy to
Yep.
measure. You can get threaded ends. You can just pop them together like you have these tees.
Yep.
It's basically just compression fit, and it's just holding up your drip line along the back here,
Exactly.
right where you want it, and you're just zip tying the line to it.
Right now I'm zip tying it. That'll change at some point. That was just to make sure the system works.
Yep.
And I can adjust it kind of back and forth to how we need it. Once I figure out exactly where I want it, I'll put pipe clamps or something like that, and a little more permanent.
Because part of this, and we've talked about this a little bit, part of this is just experimental, right?
Yep.
Because depending on where you are, even like we're outside of town right now, inside of town is a little bit different. We're inside a greenhouse, but inside of this greenhouse may be different than another greenhouse.
Exactly.
So there's a little bit of experimentation going on. I'm imagining the flow of the water is a little bit of an experiment. Stuff like that. Obviously you're testing the pH of the water, nutrients in the water,
Yep.
stuff like that. What else are you kind of looking for to adjust as you go?
Definitely the pressure in the system. I ordered a couple different cheap fish tank pumps to see which one worked better.
Okay.
We went with just the whatever $20 cheap one I got on Amazon.
Super
and
easy.
It works fantastic. It has equal pressure to all 6 drip ends, which is what we wanted.
Right, because I imagine if you go longer, you're going to need more pressure to fill up
Exactly.
that line. So this one works for at least 6 of these heads.
Yep. And then again, wanting to do everything as inexpensive as possible. Ground contact lumber is not cheap. However, if you go to your local lumber store, they're going to get lumber shipped in, and some of it's not going to be choice. So you go find their
You
pile.
got call lumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go find their pile of super discount stuff. So you get
Pressure
70,
treated
80.
stuff, so it's not going to rot.
Exactly. That's why I went with that. I graded this as best I
So
could.
you'll notice the is that 3-inch pipe on the or 2-inch pipe on the bottom. You got it on a grade, so it's higher at this end than it is on this end, so you got a nice flow just back into your tank.
Exactly.
So this is your outlet where your water's coming back out of your bucket. What's the connection you made here? Talk about that a little bit.
So we have the the PVC on the inside, which runs
So
down.
there's another 90 in there.
Yep.
PVC comes up, gets cut off. That regulates the level of water in your bucket.
Yep. There's a 90 PVC in there. It runs to this irrigation 90 here.
Okay.
There's a rubber grommet in between. Was still leaking a little bit, so I just threw some silicone on the outside.
Make it work.
Yep. Not pretty, but it works, right? And then some of them I don't have it because the drain tube is high enough. Some of them I do have just the flex water pipe.
Yep.
Exactly.
So yeah, so this is just irrigation pipe that you can get for sprinkler lines. It just compression fits onto these. You can see the little ribs fitting. It's just press fit on there.
Yep. Yep. Super cheap. Everything you find in the hardware store. There's nothing fancy. The only thing that we had to order was these lids, and you can make your own. But
yeah, I can imagine if you so you have this little basket inside. You could get a 5-inch hole saw or whatever, punch out the middle of your lid, get a basket that fits that exact size, and you'd still get it. But you decided to go with this, a little quicker, a little easier.
Quicker, easier. As much as I want an excuse to buy a new tool or a 5-6-inch hole saw bit
For like $85.
Exactly. It was cheaper just to find these things pre-made, and these little baskets actually pop out.
Okay.
So if you can change them out if you need to.
Right.
So earlier we talked about what got you guys to this point. Beyond now, what do you foresee the benefits in the future will be having hydroponics like this in a smaller area, or as you guys have talked about, moving into a bigger space?
Well, I think one of the nice things about it, it's scalable, both up and down. So if you're in an apartment, you can have 1 or 2 of these buckets and have the exact same system as we have with 6 buckets. And we have it so we can set it up so we can double the amount of buckets of plants if we want.
Yeah, and you can, talking scalable, you don't need a 5-gallon bucket. You can do this with herbs in small containers as long as you have movable water and you're getting that oxygen. I have a house plant inside that's technically a hydroponic house plant. It's in a fish tank, and it's a vase. There's a fish in there. He's keeping the plant fed. The plant roots are just in the water,
Nice,
and that,
symbiosis going on there.
yeah, and so it's the same idea, and you could absolutely do that in your kitchen window and have some herbs.
Yeah, I guess another one of the benefits is everything's run off that reservoir. So you just change or you add nutrients to one reservoir. You make sure the pH, you pH up, pH down in one reservoir. You're not doing it in individual buckets. You're just one thing you have to pay attention to.
Okay, so one question I have, the pH. How do you test it? How do you change it?
Well, pH strips. Simple as
Just
that.
happen to have those in your pocket.
Yep, convenient, right? So
Carry them everywhere.
you just take a pH strip, you dip it in, a couple seconds, take it out, shake it off, and then you set it up next to the pH level
Yep.
to see where your pH is at. Right now our pH is a little high. It's hovering around.
What's ideal?
It 5.8 to 6.2-ish,
Okay.
somewhere in that area. Right now we're in the high 6s, so
Okay.
we need to bring the pH down.
And how do we do that?
So there's multiple different
I'm
ways.
guessing there's something to do to bring it up, something to do to bring it down.
Exactly. So you have acid and base, right? Acid and alkaline.
Right.
We want it to be more acidic. We
Okay.
want it to be in the lower
Below 7.
exactly below 7. So we want it to be more acidic. So we're going to add white vinegar.
So white vinegar if we want it to be more acidic.
Correct.
And if it gets too acidic and we want to make it more alkaline, we would add.
We would add sodium bicarbonate.
I'm not going to lift this up because it's really heavy, but this is baking soda.
It's just that is
A really big bag of. I won't put it all over your patio. Yeah. But it's baking soda.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And so you just how do you measure? Are you testing? Like
There's again, look it up online.
formulas. I'm
what-
guessing the amount of water versus how much you're going to add.
Exactly.
It's not that
the,
hard.
The formula we found was if you need it to become more acidic, about 1 teaspoon per gallon of water of the white vinegar.
Okay.
There's other ways. There's more chemicals you can use. We're trying to avoid the chemicals, which is why we're going a little more natural route of, white vinegar and baking soda.
For us, it was a health decision, and we would rather go the extra mile to figure out what's going to work on a natural level, understanding that oftentimes think when you started mass producing food,
Right.
that these chemicals really came into play because it helped
It
the
helps
mass
mass
production.
right.
You're feeding a lot of people.
Right.
Well, your general farmer, rancher, your general household garden wasn't using all these chemicals.
Right.
They also weren't growing corn out the wazoo,
Right,
and
right.
it's just
So
it's
this is
just
very
different.
doable, and it's not going to affect my production level.
Right.
I can do that with natural things.
Absolutely.
Self-sustainable
And
at
it-
the household
Yes.
level.
It
Right.
might not be as high yielding as, say, going a different route, more modern route, where you're using petrochemicals and chemical fertilizers, all sorts of things like that.
Yep.
But we can get pretty darn close.
You can certainly go the route of going to the store every year and buying the pre-done plants, and that also you could seed save. Part of the reason we decided to get out of genetically modified seeds is because you can't always seed save that way. We went heirloom, and you can seed save. So that saves us some of the going, and we still buy some seeds and buy some pre-done plants, but we also have the ability, if that wasn't there tomorrow, I have seeds, stuff that has been grown in that ground or right here that is already climatized for us, and we've kept it, and we can use that over and
It's
over
nice
again.
because you know it's going to grow in the same stuff that you grew it in the previous seasons as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really impressive about the rest of your garden, because this is just part of what you guys do, is the choices that you've made on what to grow is mainly stuff that you can preserve. And if you go to our blog on North 40 on our Learn site, you can find videos with Tanya about canning and stuff. We're not going to get into that today, but we do want to talk about the choices you've made and what you're growing in your garden. So let's go head over there and we can talk about that.
All right, so we have 10 raised beds, plus an area in the front, area in the back, in which we plant in as well. As you can see right now, we have frost blankets on a lot of things. Mostly those are over even our cold hardy plants, our potatoes, horseradish, onions, radishes.
And you have this netting over top, which I'm guessing is to keep birds out from eating
Yes.
everything.
Exactly. We found that out the hard way, especially, you just heard a turkey.
Yeah.
The turkeys love gardens, turns out. So do obviously the chickens. Some of our chickens fly better than other ones. And so
Okay, and they're right here, and they can jump right in and jump.
It's purposeful why they're next to it.
Okay.
Out here, on the high plains, we have a lot of grasshoppers in the summertime. The hotter it is, the more hoppers we get.
Okay.
So we put the chickens around the garden to help eat the hoppers down. And you go out in the pasture and there's grasshoppers everywhere. There's none around the garden.
So tell us what you've planted, because you were really strategic about not just what works here, but what you want to harvest.
We've condensed this over the years because you get excited. You want to
Right.
plant it all.
I did the same thing.
And you definitely, like, over time, we really honed in on what worked and what we could preserve. We've got lots of garlic, lots of onions. We do some broccoli. That's something that we can just kind of harvest and eat, and I don't can that. The radishes are also just kind of a pick and go type thing. But lots of pumpkin, lots of squash, so delicata squash, spaghetti squash, cucumbers, lots of cucumbers. You pickle cucumbers, snacking cucumbers, because who doesn't like to go out in the garden and just grab a cucumber and go for it. We do some sweet peas, because that is a fun just grab and go.
Yep.
We've got
Horseradish.
Definitely.
Super easy to preserve.
Yes, and lots of potatoes, and
Okay.
you can cold store potatoes.
Okay.
And we are actually going to can some potatoes this year.
Okay, nice.
So,
Maybe point out the reasons why some of this stuff is the priority, and maybe show us or tell us about things that just did not work and how you ended up with what you have right now.
I think one of the big things that we quit that really broke our hearts was corn. Everybody loves corn on the cob.
Right.
Like that is a staple in
Totally.
garden. And we quit on it this year. We quit corn. And I used to can it. It just didn't yield. It didn't
Right.
yield well here. We're not the Midwest.
Yeah.
We did better in our first gardens when we were in town. Corn did okay.
Right.
It was a little warmer in town. We had better wind block.
Yep.
Out here, we've got winds coming through. And we put up wind block, and it
Right.
knocks it over.
And if you're watching this and you're in Montana or even Idaho and Washington, like this is going to be very similar. Like what else just like, because we're dry, because it's windy, what else just didn't work?
Yeah, the corn didn't work, and some of this is not that it didn't work. Carrots, we stopped doing carrots. You can preserve them and stuff. We weren't getting good yields.
Right.
It just wasn't worth the time and the energy. Mostly, it's not necessarily that it totally bombed. It just wasn't worth our time, and it wasn't worth the space.
Right.
Some of it is just taking up space. There's certain pumpkins that we stopped doing. It was fun. You want to grow a big old giant pumpkin because, ooh, it's cool. And then what do you do with it?
Right.
Lettuces,
Lettuce, yeah.
Right.
leafy greens that you would eat because they're good for a couple days.
Yeah.
You spend all summer growing a head of lettuce, and then it's good for a day or two.
Right.
And it turns brown.
Yeah.
And you can't preserve it at all. And it's fun to grow, but it's not. You could put something in that area that you can use for all winter long instead
Right.
of just having one meal out of it.
Which is
Lettuce
great.
can actually kind of be covered by the hydroponic system, I'm sure.
It could,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do that too. And again, we're doing this year's experiment,
Yeah.
seeing how the hydroponic works. If it does, I'd love to have lettuce. I'd love to be able to have leafy greens, plant earlier and have them through later.
Of course, yeah.
We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, but if you're just starting, if you have a small place, you have a backyard, like this is something I wish I knew earlier. Plant stuff you can preserve. Plant stuff that you know works in your region, and then figure out how to can. Like we said earlier, there's videos that we have on North 40 where you can learn how to can. It's not that hard at all. But just having that strategy and kind of making that shift from this is fun to I actually want to produce food that I cannot buy. This is a really great strategy on how to preserve stuff and just to grow stuff that you can preserve.
Yeah, and I know, like for us, bell peppers never worked.
Okay.
Hot peppers, we grow hot peppers like crazy. Never really been able to get bell peppers to go. I know plenty of people that grow small watermelons, cantaloupes, little
Right.
bits of fruit. Not something we were ever very successful with. You need a little more heat, probably a longer growing season. But on the other side of that, if you're looking at fruit, we do really well with raspberries here. That's
Yep.
they will establish and they like this area. So
So a little research probably goes into a lot of that and finding out just what temperatures and moderate
yep.
weather can help out with whatever you're growing.
And the other cool thing that you can do is, like our area is really well known for rhubarb.
Yep.
You don't have to go to the store and get rhubarb. It might actually be from another area. That is something that you go to your neighbor's house that they've been growing the same rhubarb plant for 10 years.
Right.
Dig out some of their rhubarb because that's going to grow.
Right.
You want raspberries, you can go to the store and buy raspberries, or you can go to your neighbor who's got raspberries everywhere and they want them gone. Go dig up some of their raspberries and plant them because they're gonna grow better in your area. They're already climatized.
We have a super short growing season here.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure everything that we're growing can grow within that super short growing season. Here, our growing season is shorter than 15 miles away in town.
Right.
So we have sometimes under a 100-day growing season.
Okay.
So we have to make sure all of our plants can
Which is
grow,
super
establish.
important for people to understand what your growing season is.
Exactly.
Especially if you're in the Northwest where it is shorter. Like that's something I wouldn't have even thought about. And it says on seed packets when you buy them,
Yep.
this is how long. Like, so if you have something that's got a 90-day growing period on it, like that's probably not one of the best things to grow. All right, Adam, Tanya, thank you so much for having us out. Thank you for teaching us about gardening. Hopefully you can watch this and learn as much as we did. You can scale it up, you can scale it down, and you can garden for groceries.
And from Gene and I, this has been The Fix. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.